Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day. I actually just took a walk before my live here, so I'm in a good mood, full of energy. I did want to give a quick tip for success for those of you showing up early and on time. Um, and my tip for you is to engage on LinkedIn with potential buyers, et cetera, that are out there. And in this particular case, I'm talking about as it relates to content. You might hear a lot of us say that you should share content so that you get visible for what you sell, et cetera. But a lot of people struggle with creating content. One step before creating your own content and putting it out there is just engaging with other people who have posted stuff out there. And the reason I'm saying this is it doesn't matter how many followers you have. You can have like 400 followers on LinkedIn, and I have 40,000 followers, right? But if you create a comment that's on somebody else's profile, and it makes sense and it resonates with people who are reading that comment, then it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It really matters how many followers that other person has and the broader network. And the reason I thought about this idea and giving this tip is because LinkedIn tells you sometimes how your comments are performing out there. And I hadn't really realized that. I just comment sometimes for the heck of it. But I did a comment recently on my friend Steve Coprince's post, and I was engaging with it about something, and I reached 1,900 people. 1,900 people saw that comment. And so imagine if you're engaging out there and you might be a little hesitant creating your own content, you can just write a comment that's relevant. Don't say, hey, great post, but get in there and engage with it, and you'll have reach and you'll begin to get visibility out there. Okay, I got a lot before us. That was just a tip for success for those of you showing up early and on time. I really appreciate that you do that. Let's LinkedIn push the word out that says we're getting going. Today, we're going to be talking about writing better proposals. I wanted to share 5 tips around that. And so one of my biggest things about sales in particular is that if you do what all your competitors do, then you're just going to be an also-ran. This is one of the reasons I've never liked GovWin as a tool for salespeople. Because I always felt like it was a crutch. Salespeople or business developers, capture people would use a tool like GovWin and go, well, here's the update from GovWin, as if it was their own capture and sales activity, and it's not. And so if all you do is what your competitors are doing, then all you're going to do at best is be on the same level as them, right? And it doesn't mean that if you're doing some of that and you've got good experience, that you're not going to write a decent proposal, but you're not really going to differentiate yourself to the customer. And that's what we want to do in order to win more proposals or to win any proposals, right? Is we need to show the customer why us. I like to say, and I used to say this all the time with my last company, we were an IT company specializing in Microsoft SharePoint, but there was like 10,000 SharePoint companies selling to the federal government. So what was different about us? And there was 2 main things. One was our experience, our past performance, and then there was a lot of other stuff to go in there. But the other main thing was our ability to get in and talk with the customer and learn about the customer, even learn about the customer's challenges and pain points, which I'll talk about in a minute, without a meeting, right? And so you've got to do something that helps you appear different than your competitors. And that's what I want to do here is give you kind of a few tips here. And that's this last bullet I have here, right? If you take some of the steps that I'm about to share with you, 5 tips that I'm going to give you, if you do this, it's not going to be hard for you to stand out from your competitors, right? It's not going to be hard when the federal buyer is looking at multiple opportunities for them to see yours differently. And that's the first step of getting selected, is to just appear different than everybody else. Everybody could be compliant, but you need to be compelling. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today. Okay, so I'm going to break up today's training, and I got about 26 minutes to do this in. I got 5 tips, and so I'll break training up into those 5 tips. The first thing is I want to talk about this idea of only pursuing one opportunity type. For example, Microsoft SharePoint was what my company did. So we wouldn't pursue cyber, we wouldn't pursue network engineering, even though we could do kind of that stuff. We pursue one thing, and so I'll talk about that. Second tip is going to be about starting early. When you start early, that's the thing that matters almost more than anything else to your success and your ability to win more proposals. Third thing I'm going to talk about is success beginning with this idea, the fundamental baseline of a strong proposal is that it's clear and compliant. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And then number 4, we'll talk about identifying, and this is a huge one for me, identifying more than just explicit pain points or objectives. And I'm going to explain to you the difference between explicit and implied in there. Number 5, I'm going to wrap up with building a team. I think that you can win more proposals if you build a team every single time. Not when you're desperate for it and it's like, oh my God, we don't fill this area, but every single time. And so I'll try to provide you a case for doing that and to convince you that it is the right thing to do to win more proposals. All right, so that's what we're going to break down. So on the left-hand menu, you can follow along on the pages we're at. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years after I got out of the Army as a small business government contractor, small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. This is what I want you to have with your proposals and to increase the number of proposals you're winning on, right? That comes from having a process that leads to predictability, repeatability of the quality of your proposals going out the door. If you haven't followed me already, make sure you come over to LinkedIn if you're not already here, or if you are here, make sure you follow me. Join 42,000 other people who are in my network. Most of these people are in the federal market, and I'd love for you to join the community so that you're able to access and reach out to them as well. Everybody in my network is open to connecting. You can bypass me and go straight to them and say, hey, Jay Madigan, I heard, I saw you in Neil's training. I'd love to connect. And he'd be happy to have that connection. So connect inside of LinkedIn. And if you haven't followed my, subscribe to my newsletter, the Government Contracting Success newsletter, make sure you do that. I'd love to have you in there. And then just really quick, letting you know about tomorrow's training. If you haven't signed up for it yet, join another 100 registered already. Here, tomorrow's training, I'm going to be talking about demanding more. Actually, that's not even the right one. So I got to go back to that. Go check out tomorrow's training. I'll tell you at the end because the last slide has the actual image. I don't know what I screwed up there, but wait 1 second. Tips 5, keep selling. I don't know what tomorrow's training is. We'll have to figure that out. This is live training. This is how you know there's some mistakes in here, but join me tomorrow. All right, let's get started on today's training because this I got squared away. Let's start with this whole idea of pursuing one opportunity type. If you want to win more proposals, don't write proposals on many different areas. For example, cybersecurity and cloud and data and construction and demolition, right? Don't be going after too many different opportunities or so many unrelated opportunities. Pick one. Pick what you are best at. My last company, I was best at SharePoint. Individually, I was best at SharePoint. I used it for my job. And then I discovered how much the government needed SharePoint services. So I went and built a company around that. That's what we anchored as our core competency. We were best at Microsoft SharePoint. And so that makes it easy for us to pursue opportunities going forward. And one of the ways you can tell what you're best at, it's what you've been paid for, not what you think you'd be best at. You know what? I do Microsoft SharePoint, but I think I'd also be good at Microsoft Cloud Management or something. It's like, I don't do that. It's the Microsoft and Microsoft, but it's unrelated. I've never been paid for that, right? It's kind of unrelated. But Microsoft SharePoint, I've been paid over and over again for it. And so all my opportunities in my pipeline, I want them to all be SharePoint related. SharePoint migration, SharePoint administration, SharePoint development. Those are all related to Microsoft SharePoint services. And what I'm recommending is that you build a pipeline that only has one opportunity type in there. Your best opportunity, something that anytime somebody talks to you, they're like, oh my God, these guys are the best, right? They just know their stuff. There's this direction the government's going where there's going to be some video proposal type submittals. There'll be some oral presentations where you meet with the buyer and you talk to them. We always did very well in there because we would go in there and know exactly what we were talking about. And it was really obvious. So you want to do that same thing, have a pipeline just of those opportunities. And this is scary for some people sometimes that, I'm going to miss out or there's not enough opportunities. Before today's training, I went and looked really quick. In 2026 coming up here, there's 106 risk management framework contracts that are expiring in 2026. So these are basically 5-year contracts that the 5th year is expiring in 2026. Risk management framework is a niched down area of cybersecurity. And so I've niched down from IT to cyber to risk management framework. There's 106 opportunities in there. That was just with a quick search. That doesn't include new opportunities, et cetera. So there are definitely opportunities around what you sell, and you just have to believe that what you're best at is desired by the government. You also have to verify that. So another reason you want to do one opportunity is because you start getting good at writing proposals. Here we're trying to talk about how do you win more proposals, right? Well, one of the ways you win more proposals is write the same proposal over and over and over again to different buyers. You just get better and better at it. Your management approach, your tactical approach, the different things you have in there, get better and better. And as you continue and you win more contracts, your experience and past performance all relate to each other. They feed on each other. But when you go after many different types of work, you never really get a chance to do that. It's actually the biggest problem with the 8A businesses, or the 8A business program, business development program, is that too often 8As will be encouraged to accept contracts that are all unrelated to each other and in too many agencies. And so at the end of their 9-year life of the program, they really have no expertise in any agency and no expertise in any one area. So it makes it hard to go after another contract or sell your company or any of that stuff. Be focused. And then the last thing I said here is it'll be obvious that you're the best at it. I put here prime or sub. I wanted to I'm talking to people who are writing proposals, and you should be doing a couple of million plus to be writing proposals. If you're not, I would highly encourage you to just subcontract. And what I'm describing could be the same thing. When you go into subcontract with a prime, always go in with just one thing that you're saying, SharePoint, SharePoint, SharePoint. Hopefully that makes sense. Put one thing into the chat. Don't put one thing, but put one thing into the chat. Sunny, I'm feeling good. I'm in a good mood. All right, number 2, the second tip I want for you is to start early, right? Starting early matters the most, I believe, in government contracting success. And I think most people would suggest that all things being equal, this is the best tip for having the most success in sales, is to start early in the customer's journey. And so let me just expand out so you can see this image. I use this image a lot I have whole training courses, like 5 hours, that are around this particular topic of sales and capture. But the idea I just want you to understand is a lot of us get caught up in this RFP phase. We see something come out on GSA eBuy or on SAM or whatever, and not to fault that. I'm 100% okay going after opportunities I see in SAM, even if I didn't see it until it hit SAM. If it's my sweet spot, I generally have a shot. It's not going to be as good if I started earlier, but if it's my sweet spot, why wouldn't I respond? Just because the chance I lose, it's like the person who was going to win could trip and not deliver on time, could deliver 26 instead of 25 pages. Don't ever let somebody tell you it's too late. It's never too late, but there is such a thing as earlier is better. And so if you move to the left, right, go into market research, and this is basically when a source is sought and our RFI drops on an opportunity. And the bigger the opportunity, the farther that window is. Sometimes that's 6 and 12 months at least ahead of when the RFP is going to drop. And so starting earlier enables you to do a lot more understanding of the previous contract, of what you see this new contract is going to look like, and your ability to go in and build relationships with people on industry and government side who can give you insight into that opportunity. And then shifting even farther left, before market research, if you can be building relationships with your target agency or the target customer group, then you can be giving them ideas. You can be talking about things long before it goes to market research. Quick example is my last company, I did SharePoint. So I would find out in the Navy who owns Microsoft SharePoint in the Navy, for example. And I would be getting in, trying to have relationships. Hey, this is the future of SharePoint. Let me come in and talk to you. Things like that. So put start early into the chat if that makes sense to you. Starting early really gives you a leg up. Okay, so that was the second tip. The third tip for winning more proposals is success begins with having a clear, compliant proposal. And I know this tip might seem really basic, but I wish I had. Hold on one second. I got all these books around that I can reference. I don't have it, but there's a book out there by John Wooden, I think, a coach. And not to go too far into it, but in basketball, he had a winning championship team last season. And when he came to start the new season, the first thing he did is sat everybody down and said, let's learn how to put our socks on again properly. Let's learn how to tie our shoes again properly. because he understood a basketball game is high intensity and I need your feet to be protected. It's one of the most important assets of a basketball player. And so I need to make sure that your sock is not causing a blister. Same thing with the shoe. And so they sat down and did that. And the smart ball players, the really successful ones, understood, yep, let's start with the basics. If we start with the basics, we work our way up. And in proposal writing, it's the same thing. Let's start with compliant. Just because we all know compliant and we need to be compliant with all those shall statements, it doesn't mean we dismiss it. Let's make sure we don't get bit by the compliance snake. I just made that up. How's that sound? Anyways, okay, so compliance should be table stakes. What I mean by this is in poker, if you sit down and play poker, a card game, then you're going to put money in to just even be able to get your cards. We call it an ante or table stakes. And so compliance in proposal writing, that should be just the basics of getting started. Right now, a lot of us are moving into using AI proposal writers, AI proposal writing tools, which is fantastic. I highly embrace it. In fact, the next slide, I'm going to tell you about one. But the idea is to make sure you're verifying your proposal writer, right? I say trust but verify. If I borrow from Ronald Reagan back with the nuclear weapons, et cetera, is trust but verify. If somebody says they destroyed it, let's just go look. If my AI proposal says these are all the compliance statements, great. But I'm going to do a quick trust or verification thing on there. So make sure you have that down, because you never want to get hammered by just missing something as simple as, the font needs to be 12 times Roman. They don't even care about that stuff. They just leave it in. But that could kick you out if you use a Microsoft Word default of 11-point font for some reason that they have in Calibri or Arial or whatever. So pay attention to these little things, because those are the things that lose you the contract. The rest of it is what wins the contract. So the second part of this is clear and compliant. And this is just my way of describing to you what clear is. What clear means to me is that the reviewers, et cetera, when they look at your proposal, it's easy to understand, right? That's what clear means to me. There's less jargon in there. For example, if you're doing cloud technology, you can say cloud, you can say maybe AWS, but you don't want to go too much farther into it where you're talking about components or level 3, 4 or something. It begins to get really confusing. And so you just want to use enough jargon that gets the point across that you guys are experts at it, but not throw it in there, because some of those reviewers aren't going to be experts at the cloud like you are, as an example. The second part of being clear is use 5th grade language. If you look at the newspapers, or any journalism out there, it's like between 5th and 8th grade. So using 5th grade language, figuring out how to make your proposal just easy to read is going to be really important. I tell you to embrace white space in here. And what I mean by this is too many of us shove every single word we can possibly get in there. There's nothing wrong with having white space. In fact, you should literally look at a certain amount of material yourself and go, what do I like best? Like I'm looking at, there's a book I have, and I don't want to show it because I don't want to knock the book. But when I look, the content is so dense, or the writing, the words, the visual of it is so dense. It's like they used every single available space to put a character in there to make a word, sentence, and paragraph, right? You don't need that. You just need to get the point across. And so I encourage you to fully embrace white space. I like putting a graphic on every single page. I like putting, and I'm not pretending to be the proposal expert at all, but I am good at what I do. And I've won many contracts this way of just making it easy for the reviewer to flip the page and they get it, right? In the Army, we used to call this bottom line up front on slides. If you came to the slide, was it easy to understand what the point was? And it's the same thing on a page. Can I understand what you're saying on a page? And one of the ways you could do that is have more white space. And then the last thing is use graphics. I already mentioned this, but use graphics for clarity. So if you're writing, which you need to do, if you're writing words that describe the process, et cetera, that's aligning to a requirement, also use a graphic that just goes, oh, I get it. Step 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing, right? And so embrace those graphics. Don't use them just for, prettiness or something. You really want it to tell a story that aligns with the narrative of your proposal. So that's the third tip there. Success begins with being clear and compliant. Put all clear in the chat if you understood that. Okay. Really quick, I want to thank Voltron for being our sponsor for today's live and our lives going forward. Voltron is an AI proposal writing tool that helps you write more winning federal proposals with their purpose-built AI. What I like about Voltron in particular, and the fact that I'm able to team up with them to bring these lives to you, is that they are federally focused. I really like this. I kind of encourage this heavily in sales, saying don't sell to every market, just sell to one market and go get your 100 million. And then here you've got a company that's building expertise around the proposal writing, how to help you have those clear, compliant, compelling, and convincing proposals. So do me a favor, throw thanks into the chat to Voltron. Maybe check out their page. If you're writing proposals and you're looking at AI tools, check them out. But thank you is the minimal thing for me. I really appreciate Voltron helping us. Okay, so number 4 is identifying more than explicit pain points or objectives. This is one of my favorite things in sales. In sales, and just explaining the difference between explicit and implied pain points. Explicit pain points are what the buyer already knows. They're like, this bothers me, this is my problem, or this is what I want, this is my goal and my objective. Those are explicit pain points or objectives that are out there. Implied ones are ones they hadn't really thought about. And so it's really important for us as sellers that we explore the challenges, the pain points, and the goals that our customer has. So explicit, again, are things that are stated directly. And then implied are things that are, in this particular case, I'll walk you through this, they're woven in. So when you think about explicit objectives, that's kind of an easy one, I think, for all of us to understand. If you look at a scope of work, they often have an objective section. And I always say that's the place people get caught, because they look there and they copy it and they put it over here and they go, this is the customer's objectives. I'm like, no. That's the starting point. That's what every one of our competitors knows. But that's just something they put together when they wrote it. But that's not understanding the buyer, right? And so our job is to go, yeah, sure, there's a set of objectives. Now, what else do they want? What maybe aren't they saying? And so one of the tips I have for you and how you can find those implied needs, whether it's a goal or a pain point, is to read the scope of work yourself. I've had to work with companies in the large companies, but graduated out of smalls, going after several $100 million in opportunities and saying, read every word, right? Read every word in a scope of work that, the RFP is loaded with a lot of FAR language, but the scope of work, right? The PWS or whatever. If you read that yourself, don't just trust the AI. The AI is like a colleague. They're reading it. They're coming up with ideas, but what's your value? Your value is a different perspective on that scope of work. So read the scope of work yourself. Come through it. Care enough about winning that opportunity that you read every single word in there, and especially every word in the requirements, the scope. And then as you go through, take the time. This is not to say this in any kind of belittling way or whatever, but it's reading comprehension. It literally is slowing down and looking at each sentence and trying to understand, what are they saying with this sentence? Was there something that was in here and there's a reason why they said it? This is where I begin to find objectives and pain points that weren't stated in any really clear way. It's up in some introduction paragraphs and you see them talking about something. It's the place I begin to find or get inklings of implied needs, whether it's pain points or goals. And then the last one on this, on the middle bullet here, is convert the objectives. So if I look at that list of objectives, in particular the stated objectives, if I look at those, I want to convert those right back to a pain point statement. Why do you have that objective, right? For example, I remember this whole one story, it's too long to tell, but basically they had a requirement that if you held up the mouse and the mouse fell from 5 feet, it would not break. And that's one thing, like, oh, you want to be durable, but do you understand why they want that? Why they have that objective? And it was because sometimes people would hold it up 5 feet, drop it, and then take a coffee break while it was being replaced, right? I'm mixing my story here, but you get my point that what they want is more than just dropping 5 feet. What they want is that mouse not to break. And so now I'm going to talk about the pain point of durability or something. So I don't want to go too far into that. The last bullet I have here on identifying more than explicit, so implied needs out there, is to have meetings with your customer. This is why this is what I call capture. Capture is about getting in and having meetings. It's not about doing more research. You can give that to an analyst, right? It's getting in and having a meeting with the people who can influence or help you understand that opportunity. Could be teammates, could be competitors out there, could be the government buyers at all different levels. But you want to have meetings and begin to pull threads, right? If you see an objective or you see a pain point, talk to them about it. And then what we call pulling a thread means just explore it more. Don't just ask it and wait for the answer, but ask it and try to understand the answer and begin to maybe figure out where else it goes. One thing I just wanted to put here, I said masterclass on this slide. I'm getting ready actually with Voltron to put out a masterclass on win themes within proposals. To me, win themes are just, and it's an interesting topic out there. And I wanted to teach this with them on how do you determine what your win theme is and how do you begin to weave it into proposals so it assists in the winning of a proposal. Anyways, if you're interested in that, just put masterclass in the chat and I'll let you know when it's releasing. We're going to release it on November 11th, Veterans Day. I'm a veteran. I thought that would be a great little gift to all of us veterans, or from us veterans. Okay, let me give you the last one. This last tip on how to write to win more proposals is to team every single time. This is another thing that I believe very strongly in, is that the pie that is out there is big enough for everybody. In government contracting, there is more than enough money for every one of us small and medium-sized businesses to get a piece of the pie. In fact, what sometimes we like to say is if the pie is starting to get empty, just bake another pie, another contract, another contract, another contract. There is more than enough government contracting dollars out there for small businesses. If you watched yesterday's training, I talked about how small businesses in new contracts only got like 600 million in FY 2024, but in FY 2024, full and open got, and I was like 84 billion or something. It was crazy. And so that when I say the pie is big enough, let's just go eat the largest pie, right? Sharing is not a problem. The second thing is money is money. I think people get confused on this with subcontracting and priming. If you prime and give away 49% of your contract, you are still the prime. The government is still, yeah, I get to benefit as a sub, but not as much as you do, right? If somebody's got two companies, they'll buy yours, not mine, because you have the prime contract. Mine is, a little bit up for debate. Not that I couldn't sell my company, but money is money. And I really want you to understand that profit is profit. Meaning if I get a contract with the government and I've got a body that I'm placing on a piece of work for $100 an hour, well, I'm going to have cost for my employee as a prime or a cost for the 1099 subcontracting company, but it's still just cost. And if I'm managing my profit margins, I'm not going to be hurt as a company in that way. But what it does is build so much value across the board in these long-term relationships you're developing. Plus, sometimes teammates can really strengthen your proposal. Yes, like I did Microsoft SharePoint and I did network engineering cloud, but sometimes there's companies way better than us at cloud because all they did was cloud. They didn't do SharePoint and cloud or something, right? And so teaming up really makes our proposal strengthened. I put here subcontract 10 to 49%. And the idea is you want to be building those relationships. But one other huge value is that as you go after bigger and bigger contracts, sometimes those contracts require that the team has worked before. The government doesn't want to have you learning how to have a relationship on their dime. So they want to know you have worked before. This enables you to, frankly, begin to vet your teammates to find the ones that really are perfect as you continue to grow up to the next level. So I highly encourage you to go after more, build teams on your proposals. The other thing, by the way, is, they're going to bring you onto their teams. That's always good. All right, I got 2 minutes left. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First thing is just pick one opportunity type. Evaluate your pipeline and make sure that the only thing is in there are things you've been paid for or that you're good at, right? That you're best at. Second thing is go beyond your competitors who are just looking at the document and whatever's written that is explicitly stated. Find the things that are implied out there. And when you do that, you will rise above your competitors in understanding that customer and understanding their pain, et cetera. And that will be obvious to the customer. And then the last thing is always team, always be teaming. I think there's a line in sales that says always be closing. Well, you can't really do that in the federal market. In the federal market, always be teaming. Okay, let me see if I can get this training thing up really quick. Demand more from your teammates. Oh, I know what it is. Tomorrow, I really want to be driving home the value of teammates. And it's one thing to team, but it's another to make sure they hold up their end of the bargain. And that's what I'm doing on tomorrow's training. So if that is valuable to you, having teammates and building relationships with your teammates, join me tomorrow. If you're trying to start and build relationships, if you're trying to get further and further into agencies or into teammates like large primes, come check out Call Plan AI. I'm building this based on all the training I've been doing, and I'd love to have you in there. Right now, because I've got early subscribers, your feedback is helping me get better and better at building the tool. I'm giving 90% off for life, but I'd love to have you over there. For all of us, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.